This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Wednesday, 8 July, year of our Lord 2026. 250 years ago today at noon, that would be in 1 hour, the Declaration of Independence was read aloud in Philadelphia to the populace. First time they had heard it. And it was like a rifle shot. Remember, all the beautiful concepts and language in the beginning is obviously highly motivational, but 2/3 of it is a quite in-your-grill declaration of war against the British Crown, an act of treason. All of these folks have been raised to be subjects of the king. All of them from birth and from their time immemorial were, raised in the divine right of kings. Although you had a constitutional monarch that even became more constitutional over time in England. This is why it was both Commons, which was totally corrupted, and the king, but it hit like Russia. Tomorrow, by direction of John Hancock, the president of the Continental Congress, Washington read it to his troops right there in Bowling Green and Battery Park, right there overlooking, which were the first 50 to 60 warships that were coming into New York Harbor off of Staten Island, as the expeditionary force was starting to disembark 32,000 combat troops. That's the bravery and courage. You got to tie both together. The signers of the Declaration, the revolutionary generation, knew what was in store for them, because this was an act of treason. Why was it an act of treason? Because King George told them that. Dickinson and the crowd months before had worked out a deal that, hey, for John Adams, tone down the radicals of Massachusetts and let's go to the king one more time. He doesn't fully understand because he's got bad ministers around him, giving him bad information or withholding information. We got to get to him. And then he returned a brutal, in your face, I don't want to hear it. I don't want you talking about it. I don't want you sending more letters, right? I've heard more than enough. This is all treason. You keep it up, you're going to get the hangman's noose. And that's just in conversation. That's before they actually voted to be independent. But remember, the Declaration of Independence is at its heart a declaration of war against the British Crown and Commons and Lords, all of it, the entire apparatus. Don't want to be part of it. We're not going to be India. Oh, by the way, we're going to war against the British East India Company too. We don't like your monopolistic practices. As the signer, the only name on this document was John Hancock's. That's what was so big and beautiful. And his business was, he was in the smuggling business. He wasn't a big fan of the British East India Company. So that's where he stood 250 today. Opportunity costs. We're getting sucked back in a big way in this Middle East war. Kinetic activity overnight, more threatened kinetic activity to come. And this is why Scott Bessent, please, Scott, everybody, Treasury, you pulled the licenses which never should have been reissued. Cut these people off. We have a winning hand in economic warfare. Crush them. No oil, nothing goes. Chinese Communist Party doesn't get to buy anything, doesn't get to mess with the petrodollar, none of it. Oh, by the way, let's destroy the currency like you did back in January. They want to be, death to America, all this, right? You're not going to get regime change. You're just not. You saw the 5 million in the street. And you saw Mark Levin saying he wants to send Marines. He wants to march. He wants to do the march up country to Tehran. Well, get a tank, Mark. Go over, volunteer to the IDF. Become a colonel. Get a tank. Lead a tank brigade and go for it. In fact, you can go to Damascus. You can go to Beirut. Anywhere you want. As long as we don't have any part of it, go for it. Go for it. Go for it today. Get to Tehran. Let's go. Let's roll. One of the big issues, I think a third of the people on Obamacare can't afford it anymore because the subsidies are gone. Dr. John Ertley from America's Health Share. Why are you guys an alternative? Why is this just not some screwball fantasy that you don't have to have health insurance? You guys have actually conceived of a better way. So, Doc, what is that better way? Why does this make sense? There's got to be an alternative because people cannot simply afford. They're crashing out of the system that's set up. You take the subsidies away, which the American people can't continue to subsidize it. So you take the subsidies away, and then people can't afford it. So there's clearly an alternative. Why have you guys created an actual alternative for people, sir?
Well, Steve, thank you so much, and I appreciate being here with you this morning. America's Health Share is that alternative to traditional health insurance, and you're right, it's unaffordable, and Americans are unable to sustain this. We're subsidizing it, and when the subsidies go away, we see just how expensive traditional health insurance is. But with America's Health Share, we're here to solve that problem and actually fight for these options and this ability to be able to actually take back our healthcare. And that's why we're seeing such a rapid growth in membership of America's Health Share, is that we are an alternative, but it is affordable. And it gives you the kind of healthcare that puts healthcare decisions back into you and your physician's pocket, really celebrating this healthcare freedom to be able to make sure that people and Americans are able to choose the healthcare that they actually want to choose and not just be forced down their HMO or their PPO plan that they are spending an arm and a leg for.
So when people come, how do you explain it to them? What information they have? Because this is a different way of looking at the world, and it's going to take people to kind of get their head around it because so many are used to paying for insurance or just rolling the dice that I can't afford the insurance, so I'll just roll the dice that nothing happens. What's the process of which you get people up to speed on this?
Well, for sure, I don't recommend just rolling the dice. I don't think that's a good and responsible option. And so this is where America's Health Share is a way that we are able to take care of healthcare bills that come on in by not just allowing those premiums to go into a black hole of an insurance company, but you have transparency of where these bills go. And so each member is able to share member to member when you have a medical need or a condition that arises. We also have that flexibility to be able, we actually believe that we want to be able to have prevention and invest into prevention. I believe that healthcare companies should invest into prevention instead of just looking at instead of just this sick care model that we have. And then when we do get sick, that you have the conventional system. If you need it, you have the cardiothoracic surgeon, the interventional radiologist to be able to place that stent. That's great. That's all included in our plans. But you also have the ability to be able to go and receive alternative functional medicine care, to be able to actually look at your own individual case, what's going on with disease, looking at your prevention and your wellness, looking at biological age. How do you biohack? How do you run your hormones to be able to actually balance out your hormones, that so you're not just being told that you have hypertension or high blood pressure and that you're fat and overweight, but you actually get doctors and have this ability that's included to actually feel better. You know, you can go to your primary care physician, and this is all for zero out of pocket that you get for our primary care visits, because we believe in prevention, but you're able to actually get testing that's able to look at hormone analysis. You're able to look at testing to be able to actually look at how your inflammation is going, instead of just a cholesterol panel and being fatigued and tired, but yet your doctor's telling you, well, your cholesterol's high, so you need to take this med, and now come and see me back in a year. I don't think that's very good healthcare, and I think this is where people are disenfranchised. But we're seeing this with America, is that we're having these options, functional medicine, alternative medicine that's included in the plan. And believe it or not, Steve, it is incredibly affordable. Our members overall are saving $1,800 a month. That's what our members are able to save. So it's an incredibly affordable plans and programs that we have, but it's very comprehensive to make sure you and your family are being taken care of.
So where do they go right now? I want the chapter guys on Medicare have now saved the War Room Posse $1 million and got them in better plans. You guys, I think, are the same type of thing. I want people to go, but the way they did on chapters, our people get in it and immersed, and they get 1 million questions, as they should. Where do people go right now, Dr. John, to find out about this, immerse themselves in information, and then talk to you guys directly?
Yeah, I want you to go to freedomforhealth.org/Bannon. Use coupon code Bannon, and you can, we're offering free month of healthcare sharing. But one, before you do, come and join, come and ask questions. We have a whole team that's devoted to be able to ask your questions. Look at what are potential pre-existing conditions. How does this thing work? How are you guys doing this as far as being able to keep my healthcare costs much more affordable? And how are you guys doing this? And really learning about that process, just how transparent we are and where you can see those monies go and what's available in the programs that we have. Because it's like I said, there is no healthcare plan that is as comprehensive. And I've done this because I've been in the world of 25 years of treating chronic disease and cancer with alternative therapies and precision alternative medicine. And we've been seeing this. There's not a health insurance plan that's like it. And this is where when you have this ability to have peptides, you know, HHS is just coming out. They're reviewing peptides to be able to actually allow for compounding pharmacies and actually pharmacies to produce them instead of getting them from China. And when we see peptides, they're wonderful for the treatment of disease. And yet this is where this is included in our healthcare programs. So it's a really beautiful way to be able to save cost and to be able to have a better healthcare experience with America's Health Shares. So go to freedomforhealth.org, coupon code Bannon.
Go right now, immerse yourself in information. You get a free month also. Dr. John Ertley, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. I want people to start. You got to do your due diligence. So let's get rolling. The guys at Chapter saved you $1 million collectively. We're going to have him on tomorrow, Friday. Natalie Winters, in all the great, since the time you were an intern here and with Raheem, I don't know, 8 years ago, I think because of the timing and the stakes, this may be among, if not the most important piece that you've ever laid out. And they just had a meeting with Zelensky because this ties together color revolutions, U.S. money, these foreign groups, and American elections. This is a powerful piece that people have to understand the threat that we have to this nation right now. Natalie Winters, can you walk through what you've got up on your Substack? Because I am gobsmacked in reading this, ma'am.
Yes, but real quick, I'm just going to fact check you. It was not 8 years. You're making me feel old. We would have been violating child labor laws if that were true. but I digress. You know, we're all about starting young here in the war room. But this, Steve, really is an explosive story. I know how much you talk about the foreign financing of the Marxist jihadist wing of the Democrat Party. A lot of people do. But this is actual receipts that show that this is happening. Not happening in the future, happening since at least 2024. Basically, there are these foreign NGO type groups. In this case, this is a Berlin-based group called Power for Democracies. Their raison d'etre is that they're anti-Trump. They hate authoritarianism. They sound like Rachel Maddow on steroids. But they, and we'll get into it after the break, have copious amounts of fundraising documents advising their donors, so very wealthy Europeans, on specific American left-wing NGOs that they can donate to that will in turn do get out the vote efforts. It is as detailed as pricing out votes up to basically $80 a vote. They're running metrics, numbers, complete statistical analyses to see which NGO is the most effective. And what I think is the most damning is that they are actively working in the midterms. They're talking about 12 to 14 swing states, hundreds of thousands of votes, and they say that they, quote, change the outcome of national elections.
No. This is the way they're going to do it. Hang on. The headline is Democrat Voting Registration Group takes foreign money to, quote, change the outcome of U.S. elections against Republicans. Natalie G. Winters, her Substack. Your jaw will drop, but she brought the receipts. Short commercial break. Natalie on the other side. Patriot Mobile, take your phone at 972-PATRIOT. Talk to somebody with an East Texas accent. If you want to pray, have a prayer group. If you want to talk about the best phone service in the world, they're prepared to do that and talk to you about a Christian company that backs your play, particularly in the great state of Texas. 972-PATRIOT, East Texas accent, folks right there, best in the country. Jenny and Glenn's story. Natalie G. Winters on the other side.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, in fact, Joe Allen joins me in the war room. Joe, I'm going to get you in a minute. You got tons of explosive news. People should know behind the scenes we're working nonstop on AI. We haven't had a lot of it on the show because we're so jammed with everything else, although it's the most important thing in front of us, except for stealing elections. Natalie, take it from the top real quickly. How is this even legal? This is outright Berlin. They're advertising. They're putting a price on an American vote, $90. $90. You can flip an American vote against Trump. This is Trump derangement syndrome monetized overseas to steal American elections. And they couldn't be, they're so blatant about it. I mean, they don't even pretend that, this is, to educate, et cetera. This is absolutely to register voters, to turn them out. It's the precinct strategy. It's Scott Presser. It's everything we've done. They've taken it, but with foreign money, ma'am.
Look, you got to go to the Substack and read this piece. I have screenshots of the actual documents, and it's worth seeing them in their own words. But there's so many buried leads. I really want to kind of give a blueprint of what this story reveals. One is the direct financial involvement from foreign entities in democratic progressive activist groups involved in voter registration. It proves not only our theory of the color revolution, this idea of anti-authoritarianism, anti-autocracy, that basically is just this weird pretext to justify, by any means necessary, change of the system. In this case, I think this exposes a very interesting tax loophole and foreign funding loophole that I think House Republicans need to call a hearing tomorrow and subpoena particularly the American group involved in this, which is called Freedom to Vote, which is because they have identified getting out the vote, right, which is mobilizing people who typically don't vote to actually vote as a tactic to fight against democracy repression. Somehow in weird 501c3, bend the USAID mind of a bureaucrat, somehow that allows foreign funds to flow in to this organization because it's not actually an explicitly partisan organization. It's about defending democracy. Now, all of a sudden, this new push to defend democracy makes a lot more sense because it's an interesting way to almost depoliticize, right? It's about saving the country. It's not just about winning elections. And I want to get very specific. I want to quote these documents. They describe this as a voter mobilization operation that is capable of, quote, changing the outcomes of national elections. Now, the group that is writing these documents is called Power for Democracies. They're based in Germany. But throughout their website, throughout various PDFs that they've published, they talk about how they have systematically gone through over 100 civil society organizations in the United States, very complex metrics. And they identified freedom to vote, the 2 is with the number 2, one word, as the most effective one that foreigners can donate to. Here's the smoking gun. Here's the quote. A nonpartisan organization under U.S. tax law, Freedom to Vote maintains neutral language and content in its outreach to ensure compliance. It can receive funds from both U.S. and foreign donors. We are currently recommending Freedom to Vote, a nonprofit organization that can receive funds from both U.S. and foreign donors. It's plastered all over their documents, all over their website. And they have a specific plan whereby right now they're targeting the 2026 midterms as part of a plot to basically subvert President Trump's, authoritarian takeover of the United States. They were active in 2024, and basically their broader plan is using 2026 as sort of a proxy for 2028. But right now they have a $19 million target where they want to go after potential voters across 14, they call them decisive states. And they deduce from their calculations that would register more than 350,000 Americans and generate over 200,000 additional votes in, quote, pivotal House and Senate races. They've run the numbers from a pilot program that they did in 2024, where they saw a 3.72 percentage point increase in voter registration and a 2.14 percentage point increase in turnout. That was 280,000 new registrations and about 160,000 new voters. They literally itemize to a dollar amount how much each vote for the midterms will cost, using 2024 as a number, saying that a voter registration costs approximately $54 and an actual vote is around $94. that leads them to the conclusion that they have enough tactics, enough potential registrations to mobilize people to actually change the outcome of these elections. Now, this group, Freedom to Vote, which we'll get into what exactly this group is and why describing it as nonpartisan is literally the biggest lie I have ever heard. But this $19 million project that Freedom to Vote is going after, they've only financed about 5 million of that. So they have an outstanding 14 to 15 million. And we'll get into USAID and how that ties into all this, which I do think is a very interesting thing to really prod. So this group, the Berlin-based organization Power for Democracies, is writing these white papers, is advising their foreign donors to put their money into this American group working on get out the vote operations, particularly in swing states, certainly for the midterms, but mainly for 2028. And when you try to figure out, well, who are these people that they're registering? Well, this group, Freedom to Vote, is sort of a shell organization for something that is funded. They use the technological infrastructure provided by an entity called Civitech. Now, Civitech is Act Blue-esque in the sense that it is explicitly partisan. You can actually go to their website. They literally brag about how their technology is so sophisticated. They will minimize unintended Republican registrations. The person who started it was actually the director of vote protection in Florida for none other than Hillary Clinton. The group itself has donated to Democratic state parties, Democratic local committees. They've worked with the DNC. They've worked with Democratic AG committees. They are Democrat through and through. And it's kind of funny, right? It's the typical thing. Apparently defending democracy is bipartisan, but they don't tell you that defending democracy also is synonymous with beating Trump. That's the little asterisks on it. And you can look, if the Denver wants to put up the one with the different colors, the boxes, you can see what their actual strategy is. So they go after basically their exclusive proprietary database, whereby they can find people that are not registered to vote, but should be voting, and you can tell how they're going to vote. They go after basically former prisoners, people, formerly incarcerated people, whatever the woke euphemistic term for that is, people who recently turned 18, and people who've recently moved. They note that they have the most success in demographics that are Black and Latina, so Democratic strongholds, and how they actually do it, which is really wild. Again, a foreign-funded organization. And some American money may be flowing into this too, but they're only getting 4 out of the 20 million they need from American donors, and they're not disclosing where the money's coming from. But they literally, to these people that they identify, no Republicans, only potential Democrat voters, they mail, quote, this is a quote, nearly completed registration forms and return envelopes directly to eligible citizens in key states and districts. Follow-up communications provide reminders and assistance to ensure completion. Let that sink in. This group is literally to future Democrat voters, basically mailing them an entirely completed form. All they have to do is return it. They've done so much legwork into finding out who these voters are. And what's so interesting, and where this really merges, Steve, with our whole color revolution framework, is that if you read these documents, not just encouraging people to donate to Freedom to Vote, but their approach to influencing US elections, like they don't even think it's wrong. There's, paragraph after paragraph about, everything we've talked about, Democratic backsliding, all these really loaded political science jargon terms to justify basically overthrowing Trump as if he is, to use a phrase, a king, right? No kings. They talk about how it's a test run for 2028. They talk about one of the reasons that they need to oppose Donald Trump is because he cut funding to programs like USAID specifically. Quote, given the role the United States plays in guaranteeing the security of many other democracies, it is not only the future of democracy in the United States that is at stake, but the future of democracy around the world. Another quote, reducing the likelihood that U.S. foreign policy undermines democracy, supports autocrats, or supports and commits mass atrocities is crucial and depends upon who wields power across the branches of government. Now, they literally have a whole report, basically their assessment of like what's wrong with the United States government, what would be more amenable to the interests of, European elites and more broadly this whole democracy movement. But this is probably the most explicit example I have ever seen, not just of foreign collusion, but of really the convergence of EU elites with the progressive left over here, which EU elites code for really far left Marxist extremists, actually colluding, exploiting tax loopholes. I do think, I can't sit here and give you the evidence for it right now because it's so hidden the way they do these, the structure of these grants. I find it very weird that they're so upset over USAID. And when you want to kind of see what these anti-democracy or pro-democracy projects were actually being funded, this is the kind of stuff that's really shady.
We're gonna make sure you brief over DOJ. I'm gonna have you back on tomorrow. We gotta get ready for the Charlie Kirk of it all. Where do people go? I need people today to read in detail, line by line, this piece by Natalie, the investigative piece, and to share it. And there's going to be much more coming from this. The engine room, people are already blowing me up to say they know. They said, hey, this is what they've been doing in Europe, and particularly Eastern Europe, sourcing these guys in Hungary for years. They're taking this model and now coming to the United States. Natalie, where do people go to the Substack to get this? Or where do they go for your social media, ma'am?
We need to see the subpoenas flying. How about that? You can go to nataliegwinters.substack.com. You can follow me at Natalie G. Winters on X. But seriously, freedom to vote needs to be subpoenaed. You need to see the money, and I think that this can unravel a lot of the foreign funding stuff and close the tax loophole. My goodness.
We started with Mike House suing the DHS for right stats. We got Fitton suing. We're not going to have Natalie Winters. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're not going to have Natalie sue. Natalie, amazing work. Like I said, of all the great, amazing investigative reporting you've been doing, this is top of the stack. Particularly the timing is exquisite. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you, as always. Wow. Birch Gold, don't miss out. We're running out of time on the 250th for the free silver round. Text Bannon, BANNON 989898. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team. See if you qualify for a qualifying purchase. Also, the end of the dollar empire. Is it happening now in the Persian Gulf? Joe Allen next.
And so, again, we're back to policy questions, which is there are going to be policy efforts to kind of prevent AI medicine from happening or robotic medicine from happening, but the capabilities for sure are going to exist. I mean, Dr. ChatGPT is a better doctor than 99% of doctors. People hate, I don't know, doctors hate when you say it, but it is true. It just is. It really is. We have all these new companies. We have this company, one of our companies, Open Evidence. That's actually the AI medical service that a lot of the doctors use. It's sweeping the medical field. And it's great, by the way, as a patient, you really want this because you want your doctor to have state-of-the-art AI, right, supporting all of their, But by the way, if only to just have all of the information at their fingertips, right, to just really understand, because no human doctor can possibly read all the medical literature and keep up with it every year. And so even just to be able to know what the latest results are, I mean, give you an example, just drug interactions, drug conflicts. People when people get sick, they don't, over time, especially older people, they don't tend to get sick with just one issue. They tend to have 3, 5, 7, 10 different things going on, and then they get 3, 7, 10 different kinds of medication that they're supposed to take, and then there are drug interactions, and it's quite complicated. But I think just the fact that Dr. ChatGPT is just so good out of your pocket, I think it's going to kind of force the issue.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I didn't give them the number. Chapter 845 War Room. They've saved the War Room Posse $1 million already. I think they've only been doing this for a month. Go check it out. Don't take it from me. Free, no obligation. Check that out today. Mark Andreessen, just to make you feel better at home, he's now President Trump's appointee on the defense policy board, the board that it's kind of the board of directors for the Department of War. I kid you not, for the Pentagon. Mark Andreessen. Also, there's a bunch of analysis and stats that I don't think I've put up this morning on Getter, but I'm going to break it down tomorrow. It proves the case of what Stephen K. Bannon has been saying, because analytically they show the massive investment in AI and investment in all other industries, essentially a net zero. Our country right now is hurtling down a highly leveraged bet on massive productivity increases from AI that doesn't lead to mass layoffs. I think it's the riskiest bet in the history of rational thinking, because now everybody's kind of, oh my gosh, is this really going to have a thing? But the money in the capital is amazing. When I talk about opportunity costs, the capital going in there is opportunity costs and ain't going anywhere else. And so no other really major innovation. I'll break all that down tomorrow. Mark Andreessen. By the way, the last thing, CNN, is it a puff piece? Can I call it a puff piece?
Oh, I don't know.
No, it's not. By the way, it's one of their they're one of their toughest. Hattis Gold is one of the best people we're CNN, and she's a hammer. I mean, she's a total hammer. But I think she succumbed to the Southern charm of watching Joe Allen. I think it's not just your intellect. I think it's your humility when you go in front of these. Because they're used to seeing Mark Andreessen's, right? Your humility when you go in front of these church groups, etc., and your accessibility when talking about artificial intelligence, sir.
Well, I do my best. It's not the easiest topic to wrap your head around. I can't say that I've wrapped my head around it 100%, but to the extent that I can communicate the intention of the people creating this technology, where they see it going, and what it would do to the lives of all of these regular people should it actually be realized. I mean, I do my best to give them the warning that they need to hear without freaking them out too much, although it's kind of impossible not to freak them out a little bit. I mean, you hear what Mark Andreessen said there. Dr. ChatGPT is better than 99% of human doctors. Aside from the fact that that's total BS, the chatbots, even the best among them, consistently hallucinate. They don't.
So how can he say that? Hallucinations, you've done more than anybody to show how big hallucinations are as a problem that hasn't been overcome and is only getting worse in many regards. How can he sit there and tell people, hey, a ChatGPT doctor is 99% better than a human?
Well, there's two ways that he can justify that, I suppose. Number one, he's really intoxicated on the idea of this technology. If you read his Techno-Optimist Manifesto, it's pretty clear that he believes that these technologies will completely save the human race. In the same way that religious people believe that their God will save the human race, he believes that technology will, especially artificial intelligence. So he's got the belief there. Now, I'm not really sure if he really believes what he's saying when he says that ChatGPT is better than 99% of human doctors, but he is very much invested in that idea. So he stands to make a lot of money. He's got
financially invested, not just morally or intellectually invested.
Yes, I mean, you know, if you look at the spread at Andreessen Horowitz, you've got Hippocratic AI, Ambience Healthcare. He was just talking there about open evidence. These are all part of his little tech stack. These companies that are using, they're kind of wrappers for the big large language models like OpenAI. So the idea is we will, from the Andreessen Horowitz perspective, we'll provide the capital. These startups will provide advice to doctors. But if you get people to the point that they believe that chatbots are in fact better than 99% of human doctors, 100% of human doctors, that means a few different things. One of the obvious ones is that every doctor, and eventually, legally speaking, most likely, should this kind of belief pervade the system, every doctor will have to defer to a chatbot, or at the very least consult a chatbot in any interaction with his patient. It means that the AI now becomes the essential mediating factor between the doctor and his patient. It's extraordinary that you have that claim given all of the hallucinations, given the risk. I'm not saying that these bots aren't capable of raking over the medical literature and very often coming back with accurate results, but it's just simply a crapshoot in many ways. The bots will consistently hallucinate, which means that the doctor then needs to be using his or her critical faculties.
But
and
also,
in fact,
it's also
away,
the thing of the
that's
aspiration of little kids that want to be doctors and registered nurses, and that it's little kids sitting there. You're really not your career. You're going to be like a under the hood mechanic, right? You're not going to, because the doctor is going to be the thinking machine. That's what he's saying. That's what's so hard. That's one of the many things that's so horrible about this.
You have it from the medical perspective, right? So doctors are kind of trained to defer to these bots. Their critical thinking withers. Their connection with the patient withers. It becomes more of that kind of streamlined, industrialized,
frictionless
healthcare.
They're trying to build a frictionless world.
But then you have all the people that go to ChatGPT for medical advice. You had Sam Altman, you had Elon Musk, both of them in a very reckless fashion suggested, or actually just simply said.
Elon Musk, reckless?
Yeah, simply told people to upload their medical data, upload what they could about their symptoms and whatnot into Grok in Elon Musk's case, or ChatGPT in Altman's case, and have the bot give them the diagnosis. Now, again, not only do you have the problem of inaccuracy there, but if you have a layperson who's trying to basically suss out their their health issues with a bot, they're not going to be equipped to understand what is and isn't a mistake. And I mean, OpenAI reported that some 40 million healthcare queries come in per day to ChatGPT. So it may produce some benefits. I mean, we've all had situations where we Googled symptoms that got past our doctors. But I think that not only do you have the reliance on the doctors is a big problem, the reliance of the doctors on these bots is a big problem, but just people in general coming to trust the bots. Now, you expand it out, it's not just healthcare. It's in business, financial analysts. You have it used, you have bots being used, the agents being used constantly to go out and perform kind of digital tasks on the behalf of all sorts of different job positions. You have the education problem, which I think is probably the worst, because as we go through the next 5 to 10 years, and this up and coming generation begins to take responsible positions in society, they're going to be, not all of them, thank God, but just so many of them are going to be completely dependent on digital technology for anything they do. They've been allowed to pass through these institutions using ChatGPT or other AIs to analyze the stuff for them, break it down, and also to write their programs.
You're being too kind about this. You're talking about an industrial program here backed by every investment dollar in the United States, and putting this in hock, that essentially ends humanity. That ends us as a species that has flourished and survived and moved forward with critical thinking, drive, and ambition. What you're talking about is we're just caretakers. We're just caretakers at first, and then we're totally controlled by the machine. Is that not correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But the good news, to me, anyway, I mean, in Silicon Valley, this is not good news.
Out of this? You found good news out of this?
If you look especially at the reaction of Gen Z to these technologies, it's extremely skeptical, at least statistically speaking.
Good news, because they've heard Andreessen and said, this guy's dangerous.
Yes, and then you've got plenty of religious people who are now really waking up to the problem, and even if they accept some level of digitization, they're not completely succumbing. That's Catholics in a big way. You see it with Pope Leo in his encyclical, but you also see it among Protestants. You really see it among the Orthodox. You see it among Orthodox Jews. You see it, for what it's worth, you see it to some extent among Muslims. And I'm very curious how, like, for instance, like the Eastern religions, Hinduism, all that, how they're really responding. But we'll put that aside. In America, you have a substantial number of people. If you look at the polling, a substantial number of people, a majority of people. In some polls, it's a slim majority. In some, it's a very large majority, depending on the questions.
But our side is gaining momentum every day. We see it in our battles in Capitol Hill. President Trump came out and said, we need some guardrails for this.
Right.
We are winning this fight as long as you dig in and don't succumb to that crap of Andreessen and these people that are all doing it to put more money in their pocket and gain more power. We're going to win this.
Absolutely.
This is like the American Revolution. The odds are long, right? A lot of people want to take the under, but we've got this if we just don't stop fighting.
I see it on the Republican side. There's a lot of incentive, I think, to back business, and AI is
they're paid
nothing
off.
else.
These scumbags in town.
Business.
What the Mike Howe started the show. Mike Howe, who's the greatest guy, the biggest supporter of President Trump, has got to do a mass deportation coalition, which half the Warren posse, and they're suing the federal government today because they're lying about the statistics. The people that supported most look, and the reason is that just like in mass deportations, the Republican Party elites and the consultants around them are totally bought and paid for.
1,000%.
1,000%. You're not a crazy political guy. In fact, what I admire about you don't really want to get involved in the politics. You're kind of wonderfully naive that way. No, but it's good. But you see it here in this town. It shocked you, has it not?
I mean, the money is flowing from all sorts of directions, right? I mean, if for someone to exist, they have to get paid. A lot of people, though, is well beyond just subsistence. I mean, you're talking about millions of dollars to say anything to defend big tech. Anything whatsoever. And they will. And it's ridiculous to a degree that someone like Marc Andreessen gets the support of so-called thinkers, right? This idea that AI is better than 99% of doctors, or AI is better than 99% of teachers, or in the military context, I mean, as you mentioned, Mark Andreessen is now basically integrated into the Department of War as a policy analyst.
He's on the board.
Yes.
He's on the board of directors.
Now,
the
what
policy
happens
board.
when people start buying into some rant about AI being
So is
better than
CARP.
99% of commanders?
So is CARP.
At least CARP, for all of his insanity, has the wherewithal to understand that the other side of Silicon Valley that's so intoxicated with the LLMs are at least way out over their skis. And CARP, I mean, he's a lunatic in and of, you know,
No, but
for him to be telling the truth,
but
you're in real trouble.
he does cut to the chase and back a lot of what we're saying. If you cut through the madness and the surveillance state madness, okay, hang on right there. I got to hold you through the break because I got to talk about this Chronicles piece. I want everybody to, since you're going to hit the road again, I want to start immersing people back into the writings in Joe-Bot thought. You're like just thought of she like she thought. You got Joe thought, right? You've been one of the things I've really enjoyed is having Joe come to the Capitol and see how horribly corrupt it is. Everything's for sale, and people come with big temptations and big money. The Pilgrim, Joe Allen, the Pilgrim. Okay, take a short break. Joe's on the other side.
Till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Hello, War Room Posse. Hey, I can't be with you the next few days, so I wanted to get on here and tell you I'm going to extend that sale that only comes once every 250 years. The Made in the USA sale. That's right. Our premium My Pillows. King size only $19.98, lowest price in history. Queen size $18.98, standard $14.98. We have our My Pillow mattresses, the best mattresses you'll ever sleep on, 50% off. And by the way, the whole order ships for free right to your front door. Mattress toppers as low as $99.98. Then we have the bolster pillows, the body pillows, the go anywhere pillows, all of it on sale. Go to mypillow.com/war room. You're going to see another sale that collides with that, the Mega 2 sale. And then you're going to find the Giza Dream Sheets as low as $29.98. Our 6-piece My Towel sets, $39.98. You have kitchen towel sets on sale. You have everything for the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, everywhere. Promo code War Room. Free shipping on your entire order. You guys call 800-873-1062. Use the best promo code in history, promo code War Room.
Okay, the president's about to step up in a carrot. We're going to cut right to it. Think of the irony. Every day for years, we would toss a Charlie Kirk in the Charlie Kirk show. We're going to toss, and I think the president, they'll probably do on the stream, but we're going to toss to the courtroom where the assassination, evidentiary trial on the assassination of Charlie Kirk continues. And I will tell you that it's pretty heated out there, people's observations about this, and we'll hopefully get to all that by week's end. We're covering this, so you're the grand jury. That's why we're doing it, wall-to-wall coverage. We'll be back tonight. May not be on, but we'll be back, I think, during the break. So at least we'll get 15 minutes with you. Last night we had like 20. And Wendy Pax is going to be with us. You're on fire. I want to talk about this Chronicles piece. And by the way, if I got to cut to the president, Tell me about Chronicles and other writings. It's now a perfect time to immerse yourself in Joe Allen thought, right? You're like Joe Allen thought, yes, right? And this is the best time to do it because, folks, this battle, we're at the top of the first inning on this. We're at the top of the first inning. So we got to gird ourselves for a long, very tough fight against very long odds, Joe Allen.
As they may say at Anthropic, enter the J space, which is a big buzzword at the moment. Yes, Chronicles Magazine, the new July issue. I've got a piece in there called The Specter of a Cyborg Theocracy. I was really flattered that they invited me to write for this issue. It's dedicated to AI.
You're the Sam Francis of this of the Luddite movement right now.
Well, I would say that Sam Francis's idea of anarcho-tyranny maps pretty well onto the Silicon Valley approach to...
He's extremely controversial, but pretty prophetic.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody has their opinions, but when you're right, you're right. And Sam Francis was right about many things, not least of which anarcho-tyranny. You can see it on the streets of America every day, and you can see it in the way in which people are picked apart at the upper echelons of society for the most minor infractions. But yeah, the specter of a cyborg theocracy. You can can find it at the top of my social media, linked at JOEBOTXYZ. You can find it on the Chronicles website, and I really encourage you to go to the Chronicles website because, again, the entire issue is dedicated to artificial intelligence. Its promises, its perils. You could say that I'm kind of the token Luddite that they invited to really
explain
grind.
to people what Luddite means and why it's so important. It's been mocked and ridiculed, but what they did had some brilliance to it, and why it's so important today.
Yeah, I urge you to pick up a copy of Dark Aeon, Transhumanism, and the War Against Humanity for a treatment of Ned Ludd and the Luddite Revolution. But yeah, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, you had this sort of mythical figure, Ned Ludd, and all of these people who were rebelling against the industrial policies that were replacing weavers with the textile mills, with kind of automated, you could say, or machine-based weaving. And they were smashing up the weaving machines because it was the machinery was taking their jobs. They weren't necessarily anti-technology, they were just anti-technology taking their jobs. And so, Luddite and Neo-Luddite has become kind of a smear word. It's kind of like a racial epithet among the tech elite to call anyone who isn't on board with any reckless technology whatsoever
who they
a
consider
Luddite.
a non-accelerationist, and we are proud to be the decelerationist camp, right? But they call us, they smear us for being Luddites.
I mean, obviously this show and pretty much everything that we do, and this is a big part of the piece on Cyborg Theocracy, everything we do is mediated by some technology or another. It's just a matter of choosing wisely which technologies to adopt and, more importantly, which ones to reject. There is a thesis I've worked with for years now. For really, it was kind of at the tail end of Dark Aeon, and it's embedded in Dark Aeon itself. But the idea of AI kind of becoming a god, right? I'm not saying it will become a god like a super intelligence necessarily, but if you look at religious culture, it hinges on belief. And the belief of any religious culture or subculture will determine the behavior of the people in that culture. And so if you look at AI as a tool, then yes, of course, you will treat it as a tool. But even as a tool, it begins to elicit emotional feelings. It's a teacher, right? People come to trust it as a teacher. It becomes for many people a companion. It becomes for many people in their own minds. They look at it and they say, "Oh, this thing is a creature. It's a conscious being." And then the more you offload your cognition, the more you grant it authority over what is and isn't real, or even the authority of the legal authority to determine who is and isn't a legitimate target. It becomes a god. AI, the tool that becomes a god. So I lay that thesis out in this piece. The Specter of a Cyborg Theocracy in
Gotta read it.
Chronicles magazine.
He's going to be in the road, but we're going to get him on. I want to go through this CNN piece, which started as a hit piece and became the exact opposite. You know why? They followed Joe Allen around and saw the way he communicates with people and gives working class and middle class people in the great hinterland of this nation access to make sure that they can use their agency in making decisions about this. Technology has a lot of promise, but also you're looking over the pit of hell. Where do people go, sir?
Go to my social media, top of the page, link to the article at JOEBOTXYZ on X and Getter. And of course, go to Chronicles Magazine. I think it's chroniclesmagazine.com.
Yeah.
And my website, joebot.xyz. Again, I really encourage you to check out the piece, AI Confidential, How to Interrogate a Digital Mind. It will really show you the power, but also the weakness of artificial intelligence, how that's determined.
Chronicles are very storied, and really incredible. They asked Joe to write this piece. We're going to push it out. Birch Gold ends on the 10th. Text Bannon, BANNON, 989898. Talk to Philip Patrick. Don't miss the opportunity to get a free ounce silver round. Okay, we're going to toss to the Charlie Kirk assassination evidentiary hearing, the grand jury hearing in Provo, Utah. Wall-to-wall coverage. Also, the President of the United States is going to do a press conference in Ankara. You got a busy afternoon. We're back here at 5. See you.